Once again, this is your host, Gilbert Githere, or Dr. Gilbert Githere for that matter. Sometimes I forget I'm a doctor and I should not feel shy to say that, They told me, use it, it's yours. So this is your Dr. Gilbert Githere coming to your homes with another session of Mazungumzo. And as usual, we make things light, because of the COVID-19 keeping people at home, it's good to start with a light touch. And that's what I always do, I start with light touch. Now, today I'm starting with some kind of strumming of guitar. When humans hear some music in the background, they feel happy, they feel excited, they want to dance, they want to participate in the music. And that's very good because times like this, people are tense. They're wearing masks, they're keeping distance, they can't go everywhere they want, especially the seniors like me. It's kind of nerve-wracking, but that's how things are. We can't complain. Might become December. We will all be happy people if we keep to the rules, So today I'm trying a Swahili song original called Amina. Ewe Amina, ni kitu gani kilicho kufanya ukaondoka na watoto usiku wa manane? Ahadi ulionipa Amina umejivunja bila kusita. Sijui ni yapi niliyoyasema ya kukudhibu Amina. Simu ikilia Amina, wewe huwaza iwe ni mimi nimekucharazia simu. Ama ukiwa uzingizini ukiamuka, unaniwaza katika uzingizi, Amina. Ile picha yako bado iko kwenye ukuta wa chumba changu cha mezani, Amina. Na wakati mwingine nikiwa chumbani, mimi husikia sauti yako ukiongea hapo jikoni, mama. Wakati mwingine mimi husikia wayo wako ukitembea hapo chumbani. Penzi lako limenitia pumbuazi, niko kama bubu kwa mapenzi yako. Na Amina simu ikilia, wewe hutumai iwe ni mimi nimekucharazia simu, mama. Ukiwa uzingizini mama, wewe uniwaza sisi tuwe pamoja. Ewe Amina, huzuni, machozi na kilio, mapenzi yako yamenitia pumbuazi, niko kama bubu kwa mapenzi yako, Amina. Machozi, kilio juu ya mapenzi yako, Amina. Kipenzi changu wewe, Amina. Amina. Sasa ilivyo kawaida yetu hii leo, nitazungumzia kwa kimombo. What I'm saying in a nutshell is that the next part after the music in Swahili I'm going to discuss this topic, in English because we've been continuing to see how we can impact the philosophers in the West. Because of this COVID thing we have, and the quarantine, and the Black Lives Matter, there has been arguments really. Why do people behave towards others in the way we see them doing, And this is what we are trying to get at the bottom of it and see whether I'll take the guitar out so that I can be a bit free and try to see whether we can analyze and see the basis of might be people being unable to accept others. And in the introduction part, I kind of say that these things stretch far. Might be they're part and parcel of the philosophy of the West. And I have taken two philosophers, giants. I have taken Hegel and I have taken Molefi Asante. Molefi Asante, as you know, in 1989, he wrote a book, Afrocentrism, which covered Afrocentric kind of beliefs and philosophy. And he covers a lot of ground in that beautiful book. Now, I'm trying to see what he says about the acquisition of knowledge in the oral tradition. That means most of the indigenous people, we classify them as users of oral tradition. They use the word, the memory. That's their archive. If you want the library of the indigenous people, you go to, the Arabs call them mufti, or educated wise men of the indigenous people, Ali in Hawaii, Aduli Akiama. These are people who kept the knowledge of the people, especially in the Agikuyu, Aduli Akiama, and Ali Kahunas in Hawaii. They are the people who kept the knowledge of the people. And, this is what I'm trying to cover in this subject. Now, in order to get into the depth of things, we are going to look at the word truth. Because if you go to the roots of the words and what people believe in, then you start to see why they should have the feeling that those are others. Like I said in the introduction, the great writer, the guru, the philosopher Hegel, kind of says that the consciousness of Germans is unique. Not many people in the world have it. Now, in the intro, I kind of covered that actually getting of consciousness is a trait that's universal. The indigenous people have it. Like it's a God-given thing. It's a universal law. Once you have a language, and most of the indigenous people have languages, you can have, you develop consciousness. It's just like a tree. It does photosynthesis. It's a normal trait, biological gift to a tree to conduct photosynthesis for its survival. Consciousness is exactly like photosynthesis. John Searle, the great philosopher from the West, actually uses photosynthesis to kind of compare it with consciousness. The acquisition of consciousness is the equivalent of photosynthesis. Because you see, without photosynthesis, the plants will not survive. Consciousness also does the same thing for existentialism, to exist. The essential aspect of existence, you need consciousness. Now, you can see if you put things into perspective, you kind of see that the Western scholars, and it starts way out in Aristotle's time, many of the philosophers have bent or have misinformed, or they have, coiled words to benefit the West as if they are the originators of consciousness. They created consciousness. And that is not true. Consciousness is universally acquired by all human beings. The only tool that consciousness needs is language. And that's why you see language is so important. And all these subjects I've dealt with is to kind of clarify some of the points people make. Because people think these things have got to do with the color of your skin. That when you're kind of lighter skinned, or you're Norwegian, German, British, French, you have a different way your consciousness forms. And that is completely not true. And these kind of things, they are not racial. I'm not kind of trying to be racial or anything. I'm just kind of clarifying points. Now, like the word truth, even Martin Heidegger had a problem in getting to the gist, what is truth? Because truth is a word. Truth is not like a hand, an objective thing. It's just a kind of, it's a word. And it has been given strength by the Western philosophers. Even word like reason. There is nothing really magical about the word reason. But you can see it is actually like the soul of the Western philosophy. Reason is equated with truth and reality. But you think these are words coiled up by people, by Aristotle, Greek philosophers. They were very good at that. And this thing have just been adopted by the Western scholars over time and misused. Just like we have misinformation, they have misused the words like truth, reason, understanding, a perception. These are words just called by scholars over time, but they have become like the foundation. Everything has to correspond with them, the correspondence theory. And you can see Richard Rorty, in the book Philosophy and the Mirror of Nature, completely negated like the idea of correspondence theory, that truth actually corresponds with reality. It corresponds with objective reality. These words correspond with what is truth. Human beings by nature, they try to improve their lives, wherever they are. They want to do things better so they can grow more food, they can live more comfortably, they can dress comfortably, or they can travel comfortably and fast. So they will always discuss. They have states of mind which are trying to improve their livelihood. And those are the efforts human beings are involved in. And Martin Heidegger, in a very, very fair way, including even indigenous people, he says all of us are trying to cope with the environment. We are part of the environment. And we are there just trying to cope and to survive, to exist. That's why there is the philosophy of existentialism. Most of the human beings are just involved in that aspect of trying to survive a very difficult world. We are worlding. Even he comes up with words like worlding. So truth is, some people say it agrees with the objects that is defined. When words agree with the object, then that is truth. And that's very interesting. Words agreeing with the object. And then the word like justification. Truth is actually a justification of the object on the other side. So, actually, even in primordial, in the past, way time past, people have pondered over these kind of things about what is truth. And they have said being true is what truth is all about. But if you look at that, is it really the definition of it? Being true. Then you say that and everything you do. Because, for example, 2 plus 2 is 4. That's the correct answer. You can just say that's the correct answer. You don't have to say it is true. And if a certain way of doing things is working as supposed, and the people who have formulated it agree as a group that this way of irrigation, it seems to be working the way it's supposed to, and is giving us a better way to irrigate our pieces of land. You don't have to accompany that statement that is true. The indigenous people might not have heard these kind of things. And when the missionaries arrived in their midst, you can imagine, because they were looking for correspondence theory in their oral traditions, you can see there was a bit of problem, because these people might not have heard this kind of phraseologies or words or predicates. And the way they put their sentences up and achieved to define their environment and activities and things in their environment, they were not searching for truth. They were just coping with the environment. Ready at hand, present at hand. And this determinedness, indeterminateness. Now, the truth again, as Martin Heidegger continues, it is said is uncovering. When you uncover what an object is and its entities, that is truth, uncovering. When things are hidden and then they get unhidden, unhiddenness, as the Western philosophers and Martin Heidegger would put ness in every kind of word he brings up. So you can see truth is also to unconceal that which was concealed, unconcealing, unconcealedness. So you can see the philosophers of the West and the scholars that before them, Kierkegaard, Gadamer, all these people, even Immanuel Kant, they are the ones the West use as a yardstick of discrimination. We want these people, the Hawaiians, the Kanaka Maoli, the Agikuyu, to show us their Immanuel Kant, who came with the word a perception. And then from a perception, he came with the word intuition. And then from intuition, he came with concepts. And when concepts are put together, you start to have ideas. And then from ideas, you start to have, you're building understanding. And Descartes says you become a thinker. I think, so I am. But if you think about it, everybody with language goes through exactly those steps, although might not the same physiologies and the words behind them, but it's a natural biological things, like let's say the way you digest your food. As an indigenous person, must be exactly the way a Norwegian digests his food, so that he gets muscles and he gets energy in his body. And message travels the same. So you see, this kind of phraseologies, you can never make them as if there is a law which makes them, inherently Germanic. I think even yourself, if you think deeply, we're not being racial. You will see that, hey, that's a fact. Those are natural biological things, behavior characteristics, endowed to every human being. But you see, people have really misused things which are really universal laws to segregate others. Like our brothers who were brought to America in chains from Gore, the door of no return. If you look at them, why they were treated like that, it's because the philosophers, Slaves in the Family by Bold. It states clearly that the philosophers, and even, who is this? The people who have written about, with Jordan Winthrop, the origin of racism in America. He says that actually for slavery to become accepted by Calvinists and Puritans, they had to be developed a philosophy. And that philosophy was that the indigenous people they brought to America from Ghana, Burkina Faso, Nigeria, Cameroon, as far as Central Africa and South Africa, Namibia, they were 2/3 human beings and 1/3 animals. A philosophy of that nature had to be developed for people to feel and consciously feel comfortable when they are seeing their brothers suffering in the field and dying. They satisfy their psyche by saying, those people are animals. And they kept their statistics in the Ministry of Animals, the Interior. So if you wanted the statistics of the indigenous people from Ghana in Carolina, North Carolina, South Carolina, you had to go to the Ministry of the Interior, the animal, and then you get their statistics there. So you can see the philosophers are very important, because using Charles Darwin's theory of the origin of species, where we come from the ocean until we become walking creatures of the earth. So they said the indigenous people are stayed behind in that development. And bang, they got a reason why you should keep the statistics of the indigenous people in the Ministry of Livestock. So you see, philosophy is very, very important. It's actually at the center of the Black Lives Matter. And people must dig deep, deep, deep to see, what did the philosophers say? Because you can see, even a book like Markov, which was used by Nazis, SS, to kind of punish all the indigenous people, Jews included. There was a philosophy behind it. So for you to solve policing in America, it is so important to go to the roots. Because if you deal with the leaves, you got to deal with the root cause of violence. A human being shooting the other one like as if he's shooting an animal. Because in the 14th century, the British people had bought permits which gave them permission to hunt gypsies. You were allowed to kill a gypsy like you're killing an animal in England in the 15th century. These things don't start now. In Australia, people had permits given to them. They could kill 2 or 3 aborigines in a month or 3 months. You get a hunting license to go chase an aborigine and kill one. Might be in a week or a month. This behavior doesn't start now. So you got to go to the root of it and uproot the sickness. You can't band-aid cancer. It's got to start way out in school. You got to start teaching the history of the conquistadors. The history of the conquistadors is not very different from the Nazis. It's almost the same. These people, they did acts which, if you read or you were there to see what they did to the Mayas, the civilization of the Mayas in South America, the conquistadors, they destroyed anything with life for them to have the gold and the wealth and the resources of South America. The conquistadors eliminated almost anything which walked around them. Luckily enough, God saved some people. So this is just analysis of the word truth, but I add on the meat for making it current why we're doing this. Truth is just a word coiled up by Western philosophers. If you question it, sometimes it becomes very spiritual. They tell you, oh, you're questioning truth, and truth is equal to the Almighty. You get into problem. They have attached things to each other. You touch this one, there is a chain reaction. Truth, you can't question truth. You cannot be a Christian if you don't worship truth. And it goes because even Martin Heidegger, at the later side of winding being and time, he connects all these things of what's a being, what are the entities of being. Entities of beings, the most important is caring. And caring takes him up to the kingdom come, heaven, caring. Because once you start to care, you first care about yourself. But at the same time, you don't live in the world or in the environment by yourself. You go to care about others. So even if you care about yourself so much, the others are around you and they are watching you and you are part of them. So he says the individual, actually the big thing that he keeps on thinking about is his death. Life and death is the concern of man when he forms that consciousness you're hearing. It's not truth, it's not understanding, it's not a perception, it's not reason. It's to cope with those two things, life and then death. And man has always been working. He wants to live forever. And now I'll wind up this section. We're going to continue from here as we decipher, just kind of to keep our minds busy during the COVID-19, where you are wearing masks, you're staying by yourself, and keeping sane. exercise a little bit, play some music. This is your host, Dr. Gilbert Githere saying ciao ciao.